2,000 years ago, the Roman Empire held absolute, crushing authority over the Mediterranean world. Citizens under its control faced harsh taxation and strict military rule, creating a desperate societal craving for a prophesied deliverer, a messiah who could break the empire's iron grip. When Emperor Augustus ordered a massive census, it forced a carpenter named Joseph and his pregnant fiancée Mary to journey to the crowded city of Bethlehem. With no rooms available, they took shelter outside the city in a harsh, unsanitary animal stable, which became the exact location where Mary gave birth to Jesus. The personal stakes for this young couple were incredibly high. Before the journey, when Joseph first learned of Mary's sudden pregnancy, he intended to quietly cancel their upcoming wedding. He only changed his mind after experiencing a vision from an angel named Gabriel, who explained the divine nature of the child. The very first people to witness this birth weren't Roman elites or local royalty. Instead, impoverished working-class shepherds in the nearby fields were directed by angels to the stable, making them the first to see the child. Rome's power was built on stone and military might, but this child arrived in a dirt floor stable. It was a beginning offering no protection or status, placing him at the very bottom of the social order he was said to eventually lead. Decades later, Jesus began his public teachings. While many looked for a military commander to lead a violent revolt, his actions were driven by a visceral empathy for human suffering. He focused on the immediate physical pain of the people around him. His first recorded miracle happened at a local wedding in Cana. When the hosts ran out of drinks, a situation that would have brought severe financial and social ruin to the family, Jesus stepped in, quietly transforming roughly 150 gallons of water into high-quality wine to save them from public disgrace. Later, as he approached the gates of a city called Nain, he encountered a funeral procession for a young man. The man's mother was a widow, meaning she had just lost her only remaining family and source of support. Seeing her weep broke his heart. He approached the procession, touched the rough wood of the young man's coffin, and told the boy to get up, bringing him back to life. Jesus and his followers faced a massive logistical crisis in an isolated area. A crowd of over 5,000 people had followed him and were now stranded without food. This chart illustrates the reality. Disciples realized buying enough provisions would cost an average worker 8 months of wages, while all they actually had on hand were 5 pieces of bread and 2 fish. Instead of turning the massive crowd away, Jesus instructed everyone to sit down. He began breaking the scarce food apart, and it exponentially multiplied until every single person had eaten their fill. These relentless acts of compassion targeted the poorest and most vulnerable. By directly healing and feeding those the empire ignored, he gained a following that viewed his presence as divine. This immense grassroots influence quickly made him a target. He publicly challenged the established religious authorities of his day, openly condemning them as hypocrites who used complex rituals to turn the common people into psychological slaves. The Roman authorities shared this panic. As Jesus approached the heavily fortified walls of ancient Jerusalem, Rome's local leaders watched thousands hang on his every word. They concluded it was only a matter of time before this popular teacher incited a massive uprising, overthrew the local governance, and declared himself an independent king. The local leaders convinced the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, to put Jesus on trial. Even though the resulting legal proceedings failed to prove a single actual crime, the overwhelming political pressure from the elite class forced Pilate to hand down a death sentence. The method of execution was brutal and public. At roughly 9 a.m., Jesus was nailed to a wooden cross alongside 2 convicted criminals. He was left to slowly suffocate for 6 hours, mocked by a wooden sign mounted above his head that read in 3 languages, "King of the Jews." By 3 p.m., he was finally dead. The empire intended for this public execution to be a permanent solution to the threat of a popular uprising, utilizing the cross to eliminate a man they feared could unite the working class against Rome. In the quiet aftermath of the execution, his body was taken down. A follower named Joseph, aided by a man named Nicodemus, carried him to a stone cave and sealed him securely inside. 3 days later, Mary Magdalene and a few of his closest followers visited the cave to pay their final respects. Instead of a sealed grave, they found an empty tomb, and according to the historical texts, were met by angels who declared that Jesus had returned to life. The texts state he spent the next 40 days interacting with his followers before departing. Empowered by these events, those remaining disciples spread his teachings across borders. The crowds in places like St. Peter's Square today are a testament to the global scale of what followed, the birth of the largest religion on the planet. Rome brutally executed a local carpenter to silence a regional disturbance. In doing so, they accidentally ignited a movement that would eventually outlast the Roman Empire itself. Over the centuries, that massive scale brought a darker reality. Powerful institutions and individuals have frequently hijacked his name for their own private profit, launching bloody wars like the Crusades and actively suppressing scientific advancement, hiding behind the shield of faith. Even today, when we strip away the commercial engine of the modern holiday season and look past the glowing lights of a Christmas tree, we find a story that has been deeply obscured. The historical core of this narrative rests on a man defined by his refusal to ignore the suffering of others. The true historical reality of Jesus provides a blueprint for active charity today. It echoes the spirit of anonymous giving we see in traditions like Santa Claus, stepping in to provide for people who cannot provide for themselves. The ultimate way to honor a 2,000-year-old story of radical compassion is by defeating our own daily selfishness, providing for the vulnerable in our own communities, and choosing to become a source of light for those trapped in the dark.